and some of the things that are happening there. So that's just a tragedy that upended all of our lives. And I actually have a nonprofit that focuses around regenerative agriculture. Um, Nicole was involved with Kiss the Ground, which is another nonprofit, and I've done some work with them in the past, several decades ago, about regenerative agriculture. And so I think I was on their radar somehow with that. And then the toxic dump site that was sort of forced on us here at Olawalu, right next door to my farm, without proper safety precautions, done really cheap, and with the potential for a lot of toxic substances ending up in our ocean and ending up in our environment, just through bad government, bad policy, and ignorance. So I think that within their circles, I believe Kelly Slater reached out to Bobby and was like, "Hey, you want to go kind of look at what's happening here, try to make a difference." Cynthia Earle was really on board, trying to help bring some attention to the blue zone that sits outside of us that I'm looking at right in front of me right here. And so trying to bring some attention to this, I think Kennedy's like saying, "Hey, how can we make a difference in this, or how can we bring some attention to this?" And so that's how I think I got hooked up with Mr. Kennedy to come and view what was happening on the farm. He has a keen interest in good, solid agriculture, and that term you hear us speak of with regenerative agriculture, basically fixing what's been broken, trying to put systems in place that are long term, like a forest does. It takes care of itself. People have played with that word sustainability. Unfortunately, now regenerative is taking on that same catchphrase, and everything wants to be regenerative instead of sustainable. It's a little bit annoying with what's happening, but I want to just stick to the core of that. Means that we need to fix problems. We need to fix how the old timers used to do it. They used to dump mercury in the ground and lead in the ground, and they said, "Oh, we can't do that anymore," and they fixed that. So then they started to clean up rivers, little bits of uh, progress in like trying to say, okay, we're moving into the 21st century. We shouldn't dump lead in the ground. We shouldn't dump arsenic in the ground. We should kind of, you know, change our ways and learn from our past so that we can walk to the future for a cleaner future for our grandchildren. I look personally, I'm not a very political guy, and I look at the two other choices, and they're just so bad on every respect. It's just like absolutely terrible, and it seems like there's no hope. There's never been any chance for I know, I'm sorry, I'm going off the subject of the question you asked me. Sorry, I just tend to do this, guys. I tend to rant on things. Um, so just call me back in if that's not working. Um, but the idea of someone that actually cares for our environment, that wants to see clean rivers, that wants to take care of, our environment, that's huge for me. And that's really the only thing I really care about is my environment. I could say that I care about my community, but my community doesn't even exist healthily without a healthy environment. So I think I try to look at that first. And so him coming to visit us and see what was happening at the dump and try to get some attention on it. I think we got enough attention on it where supposedly we stopped it from becoming a permanent dump site. It's not built to be a permanent dump site. It's only built to be a temporary dump site. But we're still not so sure that they will even move it. And we know that they had the intention of building it with only an 80 mil liner and everything that was insufficient. So that's a super fun waiting to happen. And so now we're trying to put pressure on them to make sure it's moved to whatever their permanent solution is, and to make sure there's fail safes in place for that. So I guess that's a long-winded answer to how I got hooked up with Kennedy and how he wound up on Maui. And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know that I think it was Dr. Emmett Aluli, that he, if I'm not mistaken, he said, the health of our land is the health of our people. And it's truly, it's that relationship of us being stewards to the land, because the land is truly basically, trumps us all, because not only has it been here forever, but it also provides everything that we need if we give, if we have that opportunity to malama it. So I super just am very grateful for all that you're doing. And I think one of the questions that I had is that, I saw you on Instagram talking with Nicole and, having conversations with her. And I was just wondering, uh, how did that, spark? Like, what was the conversations that why were they interested in speaking to you? Is it, are we looking at something that they want to do as an administration? I know that their Kiss the Ground was all about talking to farmers and our local farmers, and how do we redo things? What are you doing? Kind of thing. And I just wanted to see, what was it that Nicole kind of was bringing to the table, or maybe had to share with you in regards to what they would like to see happen.
I think just in one word, that their administration really supports, and not just with a buzzword, is regenerative agriculture. I think that Nicole has been involved with it for several years before I even she was following my work, and I was working with her indirectly through the Kiss the Ground Foundation, and didn't even realize what our connection was. So she's very familiar with a lot of my work and a lot of things that I've done with it. And the administration, I think, I can't speak for them, but she said that that was a huge part of why they're bringing her in, is so that that's really a big part of their campaign, is to support our farmers in America and trying to educate them as well, rather than giant monocrops such as corn or soybean or crops that have to be subsidized. Actually, a strategy that takes care of our land, that cleans our rivers, that stops the displacement of our pollinators and our animals, and like sort of looks at a cleaner America where grandma grows her own apple pie from her own apple tree. 100 years ago, 90% of Americans were farmers. Now, less than 3% of Americans are farmers, and 99% of it is corporate farms. And that brings with it the destruction of the land, the destruction of our everything that's happening around us, our rivers and our environment. And Nicole is very passionate about trying to make a difference there. She really wants to be in a position to be able to, if to lend that to people's mentality, that not only regenerative agriculture, but regenerative lifestyles. I think 200,000 disposable coffee cups a day in Hawaii from the tourist industry. Just telling people, hey, bring your own coffee cup. Just little strategies like that. You hear them starting to talk about regenerative tourism. Hey, instead of going parasailing, try to go something that go somewhere that supports mom and pops and has to do with the culture. Or what about that? Every restaurant you eat in on Maui, it's all from Costco. 99% of it. So these strategies, we're in Hawaii, we're only like 2 weeks away from starvation. Not those of us who know how to grow food, fish, hunt, dive, easy. But those folks that don't have that, literally, if the barges stop coming, then you're not going to find milk and cereal and all the normal stuff that you eat in the grocery store. So we really should be building systems that are more resilient to feed our people, and to also export crops, and to, but doing it the right way, not trading our environment for it. So that's most of our talks, my talks with Nicole, centered around indigenous culture, meaning our Kanaka Maoli, and how they've been left out of the picture. And much talk about the Hawaiian homesteads and getting people actually on that list that have been waiting for 30 years, being able to get onto their homestead land, being able to listen to what our kupuna, our elders, have to say and give them a voice. All the things I heard coming from her were absolutely amazing. And I think she's done some pretty cool interviews with some of the kupuna around Kauai and Oahu and whatnot. And so to hear people putting the environment like right up there with the people and realizing it's the same thing. And people are like, oh, you're putting the environment in front of the people, or one thing or another, all these things that happen, but having enough common sense to actually realize that they are one and the same. And especially in our culture here in Hawaii, because it is so tied to the Aopua'a system, and what happens on the top winds up down on the bottom, and that we should be trading and sharing our resources and knowing that the river is not ours, it's everyone's, and we all depend on those resources. So again, that's the language of like, yeah, we need to take care of our environment, and taking care of our environment takes care of people. So those are what my conversations have mostly been based around with these folks.
That's awesome. It's inspiring that somebody who is, pledged, their life, at this point in juncture to really make a change, for the greater good is actually listening to the people, that have not only done it for generations and generations, but also continue to carry that message forward, from our kupuna. I know that some of my friends that are here on this call, are a part of agroforestry, and even Auntie Blanche, I think was Kula had told me Auntie Blanche was in Waimanalo, was one of the recipients of that, and it's really amazing to see what we can do, and it's fascinating to think too, to put in the mindset that um of even thinking our economy, and because at the end of the day, like you said, if the barges stop, and you're not growing your own food, you're a part of the starving population. So therefore, who becomes the richest man in the land? It's the farmers who are, and the fishermen who are really, end up being the most sought after people. So where is our where's our thought process, and how do we rethink and reshape that, and so I super appreciate that. Um, I think, did anybody else have any specific questions, for Eddie that they want to bring up? I mean, I think in so many words you were able to share with us, you know, where, what type of conversations and what they want to do with that moving forward. I can go back to a
And
gallery view.
I
Hold
could
on one second.
just share a little rant with you guys really
Yeah.
fast about what is regenerative agriculture? What does it mean? What does it mean to have like true stewardship of our land? And you talk about the wealth that comes out of it. You're the most sought after because you know how to grow the food and you know how to feed the people. But what's way bigger than that is giving a kid their first carrot or their first strawberry, or letting someone know that peanuts grow under the ground, or that they plant this seed and like going through. We have a volunteer program that goes on at our nonprofit, which is Regenerative Education Centers here, and we are set up in Oluwalu. In the aftermath, since day one, for the last 9 months, we've been living in trailers and on site. And what we did for our strategy, my strategy personally, was to bring in some connections that I had through agriculture, through Pasha, some of the shipping companies, some of the solar companies I work with, and I teach people about homesteading. I've been very passionate about trying to help the Hawaiian homesteaders, trying to get solar on their land and tiny homes and whatever it takes to be able to get them on the list without infrastructure there yet. Like get them off the list and onto their land. Their excuse most of the time is not having infrastructure. Right now, this program is serving the people that are in Lahaina that don't have houses and are getting kicked out of hotels, and or just like they don't have a real clear future. So we take shipping containers, we build them out, we add a solar system, a black water tank, a bathroom, a kitchen, and we give it to them free of charge. And then we find agricultural land, Auntie's land, or someone else who has land that we can host these people on for the few years of the proclamation. And then they own that homestead and they can take it back onto their land in Lahaina. Or if they weren't an owner, they can find or extend the lease they have it on. And it changes their lives a little bit because they're allowed to farm around it. And they're starting to grow some of their food. And they're realizing I don't need an electric company. I have everything I need with a small solar system, and their footprint actually becomes more conscious of what they're doing. So along with this program, we're growing hundreds of thousands of pounds of food without a drop of fertilizer or pesticide or chemical of any sort, and we're giving that all 100% for free to our community. So with that, we try to educate people constantly. And when they see it as a reality and they go, wow, this mound has 100,000 pounds of food on it in 5 months, and it's the diversity is so amazing, and you haven't used a chemical, you haven't used a fertilizer, you've worked with what nature has there and trying to adapt its own strategy, and it works. And I've been showing these models for the last 25 years solid, and our results are really solid. We have some of the highest yields of bananas, papayas, taro. And this is with zero fertilizers. So why do we have to continue these models of large agricultural monocropping that their singularity is what destroys the process? Rather than the whole and the diversity, you don't have to feed a forest. So finding ways to crop like a forest does, it takes care of itself. These agroforestry movements, this is what we need to inspire people with. And if they don't have models that they can see, it's like this is going to take 10 years, this is going to take 20 years. And if you show them what can happen in 6 months, a year, it's mind blowing. And we really need more models like this. We need it to be seen. We need people getting their hands in on the ground on it. And so we also run an intern program where we bring in folks, especially Hawaiians, when we give free programs to them of trying to educate them and give them their own lease and then teach them how to get a USDA loan. The USDA loans are all over the place and available for all of our local folks here and all over America. And if people start farming and they farm for 3 years, they can buy their property with no money down and a 2% interest. It actually opens a door for folks to be taking care of the land. And we've been like so excluded from the land. You have to work looking at your cell phone, paying your bills. No one looks at it like, wow, we can make that money off the farm. So then we also try to teach folks that enough selling food for 50 cents a pound to a wholesaler. They're selling it to the restaurant for $3 a pound, and the restaurant's selling it to you for $14 a pound. So we're trying to tell people, hey, it pay like as a farmer, diversify, sell things to the tourist industry at luxury prices, give things to the locals at cost, and you'll find a balance there. And also upscale everything that you grow and try to do value added, whether that's turning sugarcane into sugarcane juice or turning apples into apple pie. That whole mentality of like bringing back the small farmer and taking farming out of the giant companies' hands and bringing it back to the individuals, that's really what the regenerative movement is. And that's anywhere from a quarter acre to 200 acres. But really, anything larger than that, you're setting up these different models. And great, now you can inspire the industry because we're never going to get rid of the industry, but we can inspire them with these same models that are super productive, have multiple layers of crops. And every time you do it, the land gets better, the stream gets cleaner. Instead of displacement, you're re-attracting the natives. You're planting native belts around your projects and erosion control plants. So sorry, it's just a rant, but that's what a regenerative agriculture speaks of. And a regenerative lifestyle along with that speaks of regenerating our community. We need to get everybody involved. We all say we want to farm. It's really hard work, and we need to be able to see it right in front of us and get our hands in it. So again, just a rant to everybody, but that's what I've been doing for most of my life. I realized that I could be on the giving end of the stick just by learning to grow food. And the wealth that it brings, giving food away to people is amazing. I hate selling food, which is kind of contradictory to the economical model. But I do want to say there's a wealth from, and a bunch of you guys here are farmers, I recognize some of you that are in this movement, the wealth of being able to understand nature and have a connection to it is wealth beyond what my words would ever do any justice. And that's what the Kanaka carried, these generations of handing down story of like how this worked and how we came to this understanding that this Aina feeds us. And then also we have to feed this Aina. We have to take care of it. We have to reciprocate. And so, yeah, that's my big thing, just trying to get my community involved and trying to share with folks what's going on here. And so really this context of presidential candidates being involved and speaking this language, that's amazing. So I guess that's all I can really say on that, not being a very political guy with that. And just having you guys all here present and being able to share with you how important farming in Hawaii here is to our future and how much we are dominated by Monsanto, by Mahi Pono here on Maui, all these giant monocropping operations that are still sticking plastic in the ground, that are still destroying our land, tilling it up into the sky. and just taking on practices. They planted over 2 million lemon trees on Maui. They don't even realize what that does for our fruit fly population or how it's going to destroy the swallowtail butterfly. Just the things that come along with it. And who eats lemons? Everybody's got a lemon tree in their yard here already, and they're dropping on the ground. So, like, it doesn't make any sense. We need to set up systems that community, like on a much larger scale, and they also serve the land, mahiai, like we are servants to the land for this. And if once we understand that, the wealth that comes with that is mind blowing. Here on my farm, if any of you are on Maui, I invite you to come by. We took a piece in the back that was just cars and trash and you name it, and had old mango trees under a bunch of invasive trees. And we cleared them up. And in just 2 years, we're getting 30,000 pounds of mangoes and like 15 different varieties and the best mango you'll ever have in your life. And the temperature is 10 degrees cooler, and we use drops of water compared to conventional farming. Conventional farm our size probably uses 150,000 gallons a week, perhaps some of those guys a day. We use less than 20,000 gallons a month on 17 acres by reflooding our water tables, by taking silt that was getting washed into the ocean and flooding our lowlands with it, and then collecting it, chipping up the invasive trees, adding fungi and earthworms, and building mounds, and then creating this forestry program that grows this astronomical amount of food, but it's also super beautiful. So, like, making our farms beautiful again, that's another thing that I think comes with regenerative agriculture. To come through and see all these corridors of beauty in so many levels, not only flowers, but seeing bees doing their job, or the different native bugs, or the seeing birds come back, and seeing how the whole contributes to taking care of our Aina instead of destroying it. How many of us grew up going to a farm and there's just trash everywhere and tractors, and there's a row of something they're selling to you, and you're like, whoa, this ain't very pretty, this isn't something that's real, I don't know. So I think that our regenerative models create so much wealth on so many levels. So yeah, again, it's a long rant, but thanks you guys for all listening to me on that, because that's what's important to me, and that's what I have to offer, is mostly just knowing how having this relationship I built with the land and making it really common sense for adults or kindergartners to really see it. It's not rocket science. I'm not a rocket scientist, but to see it is amazing. And I think that's why I get a little momentum with what I do. And so if you're here on Maui, come check it out. And you can, like, also, I'm just going to put out to you guys, we're livingearthsystems.com. You can kind of keep up with what we do and on Instagram. And our nonprofit is called Regenerative Education Centers. So you can always go on there and you can
A
find it,
question.
and you can see some of the videos. Excuse me.
One question in the comment just said, can you say where the farm is? Out in Oluwalu?
Yeah, so the farm
Or
that we're at in Oluwalu right now is right across from the surf break at Oluwalu. It's 30 feet across from the ocean. It's below sea level, sort of where we're at. And we are right, you can't miss us. There's a bunch of containers, there's a windmill, there's a farm stand coming up here where we give food to the people from Lahaina. And then we also have a little bit of a retail we're setting up to support the farm through there as well, like
right
serving
on.
smoothies and cane juice and whatnot. So we're real easy to find. You can find us on a Google marker, REC, at Oluwalu, and it'll take you right to us. And like I said, on our Instagram, whatever. And we're just trying to spread some awareness about what's happening and keep people in the loop on the what's happening with the dump there, because a lot of people haven't been. So we just happen to have drones, and we make films. We make films about regenerative agriculture and about all these things that we do with rec here, to bring people in so they have a place to pot plants. They have a place to learn about earthworms. They have a place to learn to put a solar system together, or to come farm with us and volunteer with us. And then we try to make films where we can put that out into the world and educate more people that aren't here and see what that looks like. So that's like an inspirational thing that we try to keep up with. And you can find a lot of that on our YouTube channel or on Instagram or on one of those sites. And yeah, that'll give you a little bit more of what we do. So I'm sure a lot of you don't know who I am or what I do. I'm sort of a nobody, but we've been making some pull with the records that we're holding for some of the food, some of the stuff we're growing, and some of the production that we're creating, and how it's actually helping the environment right around us, and how our communities get involved. So yeah, thanks.
Yay. I super appreciate you, Eddie. You've been super awesome. And very inspirational. And honestly, my next question was going to be, what do you do? What does the layperson do? What do you ask them, to do? But I kind of want to turn the attention and ask my friend Kula, because I feel like she's done it. She literally has done it in her backyard, and I think maybe if she is in her backyard, she might show you her agroforestry, and she just stood up. So I think that education is everywhere, but I don't know, Kula, what do you do just as a layperson to do anything? Is from composting to anything, just really, even if you aren't able to start farming right now, what do we do?
Aloha, everyone.
I know,
Um,
sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm also a nobody. I'm a mom. And I've been blessed to learn from Dr. Craig Elovich, over the past few years. We made a connection because I was born and raised in Kau, which is on the south side of Hawaii Island, which is the island in itself. And our conversation was food sovereignty, because I have it mapped out in my head, um, where to harvest from, on people used to travel on before on Hawaii Island. They'd throw their like wild avocados or apples. And so my dad was a fisherman, and there's no grocery stores open. Everything was, an hour away. So as most of you know, if you grew up in Hawaii, and especially places like that, um, the land and the ocean is your refrigerator. That's your life depends on it. And so that part is very near and dear to my heart in that way. And I was a new mom when I met Dr. Craig, and that was our conversation. I was volunteering, and I had no idea who he was. And super long story short, I introduced him to one of my dear friends who does la'au, Hawaiian medicine. And they kind of developed a hybrid relationship with a mama food forest system, which is something that we were kind of organically doing anyways. So I live in Kailua. I'm not going to tell you exactly where because it goes from private property to county property to state property to preserve land. And there's actually a dump somewhere in the back of this historically also. So I went from kalo and fish ponds to rice paddies to pasture land like most of Hawaii. And it just was nothing. And it was dry and deserted, and lots of invasives in every way. So after I met Dr. Craig, and I got a phone call a couple of weeks later saying that that conversation kind of sparked something in him that he was teaching people for almost 40 years. And, most of it was just pure education, but how do you actually connect with people, and how do you have growth? So our conversation went from, what we spoke about earlier, what Eddie was talking about. If you have a relationship with land or the ocean, that's something that nobody can ever take away from you. We're all gonna go through difficulties and stuff. So they came up with a concept of implementing agroforest and teaching ohana so that you can be food sovereign. And so behind me, if you can kind of see, was nothing 2.5 years ago. And it's a forest that you stand under. And so what happened was this was right before the entire world shut down when I met him. And he talked about this concept. So I wasn't prepared to go out. And everything that Eddie Garcia was speaking about, which is a forest under me. And so we were able to produce hundreds and thousands of pounds of food in a small space. And my conversation really with Dr. Craig was, you know, my children go to a Hawaiian immersion school, and food is that full po'ai, that full circle. So if you can teach children at a young age to have a relationship with land, and you feed people that's gathering your same language, you're saving ohana, you're strengthening mothers and families. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And so what happened organically, for lack of better words, is we had gatherings here, and my community kind of expanded from my personal community to bigger community. And people know to call us for flowers, for birthdays, for emu stuff, and it just keeps growing. And so we've done numerous friends' backyards, from like scraping the top part of the grass on Hawaiian homelands. Actually, we've done 4 parcels on Hawaiian homes, so you don't have to have big land behind your house that is not technically and our whole concept was, if they're gonna tell us to cut it down, then that's okay, but most of our neighbors love it and they come and they gather. And so I think I want to show you this part of it behind me also, without trying to see it all. And the reason why I showed you that shot is there's a dump behind me, and I went to Lahaina Luna, so I know firsthand what water access does to a place. The our high school alma mater, o Kamalu Ulu Olele, one of the lines in there talks about ho'opulu ikeo ho'okapala'i, which is the water on the ferns. So when I was there in high school, at least there was running water, but I already wasn't seeing ferns, let alone water on it. So what Eddie is explaining really is true, in the sense that you can grow plants to feed the soil that will feed you. And that's something that everybody's ancestors did. It's not something specific to the Pacific Islanders, but a lot of Craig's work was within. In fact, let me jump to they just had the Va'a Festival this morning, right? So people are here in Hawaii from 28 countries, and I was lucky enough to be part of the worldwide voyage when Hokulea went. And there's a saying that we talk about with the lay of hope when we went around the world, and it is he wa'a, he moku, he moku, he wa'a, which you should live life and then make you live on a wa'a. And so just know that I am living, breathing proof of someone that grew up in the country, someone that was placed into Lahaina, having that community literally raise me. I was a boarder. It is a requirement to take an agriculture class if you're a boarder and live in the dormitory. And when you take out systems from community, like when you displace people or you don't have access to food, it really does affect you. And so thank you for letting me share. I wish I had more important beautiful things to say, except I'm just really grateful to listen in and to learn from you, Eddie, and know that I think a lot of us have it ancestry from whatever background we have, right? If you were to, what did I learn from sailing? If you were to drill a hole from Africa, you'd end up in Hawaii, right? So you take one of the eldest cultures and one of the youngest cultures, and all of that knowledge and all of that gathering, there's truth within it. And Eddie went back a few times talking about Hawaiian connections, and my children learn about Kumulipo, the beginning of time, and there's something to be said about what Chance and Oli say, what all the ancestors knew before us of their relationship to food and each other. So if I can be a small part in any of this to inspire any of you in any way, for Maui, and the rest of Hawaii. I hope some of this resonates with you. Mahalo.
Oh, mahalo, sis. And I didn't want to take away from Eddie's spotlight either. Mahalo, Eddie, for everything. But I thought I was hoping that it would make your heart happy as well, to hear what what both of your efforts are doing, and these different connections that we have and to tending the land, including our very own Eric on the Big Island and doing his his own form of regenerative farming. And I think we all as a community come together and really try to practice as much as possible a regenerative way of living as well. So I love the way that was framed.